Folks, today I'm not making a gaming video. I'm making a yapping video. I just want to point out some very strange stuff happening, okay? Let's look at Sekiro Shadows Die Twice achievements. Now come over here. No, just walk down with me. Man without equal, defeat all bosses in the entirety of Sekiro. 13.8%. Quite low. Yeah, makes sense. It makes sense that that's low. Let's see how many people defeated the final boss of the game. In a typical playthrough, you will fight Sword Saint Isshin Ashina. Only 28.7% of players beat the game. Wow, this must be a challenging game given that less than a third of players were able to complete it. But a significant amount of players were still able to complete the game, which shows that it is still possible to win, despite how challenging it is. And it's still feasible. Well, that's interesting. Well, if we go to Hollow Knight then, which is comparatively an easier game, let's see how many people beat that game's final boss. So if we go down here to the Hollow Knight achievement, defeat the Hollow Knight and complete the game, we can see that it's 13.6. 13.6%? You're telling me that a lower proportion of people beat Hollow Knight than the proportion of people who beat every single Sekiro boss? Mind you, this includes Inner Father and the Demon of Hatred and Inner Isshin. 3 of the hardest bosses in all of FromSoft games. And you're telling me that less people beat Hollow Knight? Oh, what in the world? Or I'm not less people. A lower percentage of Hollow Knight players beat the game. Dog, you paid for this game. Aren't you going to get your money's worth by at least finishing it through? I mean, 13.6, that's just so low. And now I know that a lot of Hollow Knight players, they're not playing this on the PS4. But still, out of the PS4 players, you'd think that the percentage would at least be higher than the proportion of people who beat all bosses in Sekiro. Goodness me. That is so weird. Like, oh my. Opening half of the stag stations in Hollow Knight. Half, 50%. Less people did this than the proportion of people, or a lower proportion of people did this than the proportion of people who beat Isshin Ashina in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I remember reading a freaking YouTube comment that said they were stuck on Isshin Ashina for months. Yeah, that's right, months on a single boss fight, and still a higher percentage of people beat him than opening half of the freaking fast travel stations. Oh my quad. How hard is this game? Is this game actually the hardest game of all time? Me personally, I don't think so. Sekiro was absolutely harder than this by a wide margin. This game is challenging, mind you, but oh my golly. Oh my goodness gracious. No, that's wild. Now, just out of curiosity, I haven't looked at this yet. See, before recording, I looked at the Sekiro achievements and then the Hollow Knight achievements. Let's look at the Silksong achievements. I bet I am going to be floored by what happens here. Sister of the Void. Hold the freaking phone right now. This is the secret 3rd act final boss of Silksong. And you are telling me that a higher percentage of people beat the secret final boss of Silksong than people beat the main game of Hollow Knight? What? How did more people beat the secret 3rd act of Silksong than the main final act of Hollow Knight? That doesn't make any freaking sense. Oh my gosh. Oh well. Less people beating the final boss of Silksong compared to the final boss of Sekiro, I think makes sense. People are still a bit new to the game. But like, if people are still new to the game, you'd think this percentage would be lower than the proportion of people who beat Hollow Knight. But no, what in the world? Is Hollow Knight just ass? Is Hollow Knight just harder than Sekiro and Silksong? What is going on here? That doesn't make any sense. Goodness gracious, Hollow Knight is a fudging masterpiece. Ah, this is so weird. All right, now out of pure curiosity, just because my pickle is thoroughly tickled right now, let's figure out what else is true here, huh? Let's look at, oh, I don't know. Dark Souls 3. Yeah, that's a popular game. So the statistics are probably a good representation of like the data. Or yeah, the statistics are probably pretty good right now. Basically, it's not a very small subset of people who play the game. Or not a very small number of people who play the game. More people, more players, more accurate data. All right, to Link the First Flame. 30% of people beat Dark Souls 3. You see, that kind of makes sense. But, oh, it's kind of funny. Dark Souls 3, I think, is an easier game than Sekiro. It's still really hard. But wow. The number of people who beat this game is almost the same as the number of people who, or the proportion of people who beat Sekiro. That makes sense in my opinion. See, these are sensible statistics. I guess it was just the Hollow Knight achievement that was the real anomaly here. The strangest thing. Reach Archdragon Peak. You know, when I first played this game, I never found this area because you need to do like, you need to get this side boss. You got to kill him. Then you got to get this emote. Then you have to go to a specific statue and then use an emote at that statue. Which, I mean, I guess you're smart if you figured that out for the first time. But if you're an offline player, this is a hard one to get. But if you're playing online though, and you see those messages, it makes sense that you'd see so many players get that, I suppose. I guess this is a bit more players than I was expecting. Or maybe I'm just overestimating how many offline players there are. Defeat the Nameless King, 36%. Interesting. Now what I'm also curious about is Elden Ring achievements. But I deleted Elden Ring from the PlayStation just to make sure, because I don't have it on disc. I downloaded it to the PlayStation, so I had to delete it in order to make room for my other games. Most notably Dark Souls 3, because that was a little chunky. Actually, wait. We can look at the DLC, can't we? Can't we? Yorm the Giant, Aldrich, Lothric. These are all... Ooh, how many people beat Lothric? I'm curious. Wow, 44%. See, that's a bit higher than I was expecting, because that's quite a challenging boss. Alright, I don't see Pontiff Sullivan, 51%. Over half the players beat him. That's cool. He is, I think, tough, but he's got... he doesn't have that much health. But where in the world are the DLC achievements? There's got to be some here, right? I could give it a like. Nah, I think me buying it is kind of more important than a like. Sifu, this is a... You see, I was a bit hesitant to look at the achievements of this game because this is a smaller game. It's not going to be as popular as, say, a FromSoft game or Hollow Knight, but let's see. Wow, I 100%ed this game, wholly unemployed. And it was this year? Wow. Oh yeah, I went achievement hunting for a little bit. Let's see, how many people beat Yang? It's probably higher than I'm thinking because you could beat Yang at an old age. Yeah, you don't have to be that good at the game as long as you stock up on age. The Hateful Pole Fighter. Wait, what? Whoa, less people beat Sean than Pontiff Sullivan. Even though Pontiff Sullivan requires being several hours into the game, like 8 hours. Actually, maybe that makes sense. The shorter amount of time you are in the game, the more likely you are to quit. Since this guy is literally level 2, people might think, I'm not losing that much time, or I haven't wasted that much time if I don't follow through on this fight, so I'm just going to quit here. So now that I think about it, it really does make sense. Furious Fists, 19.9%. Ooh. Wow, I was expecting this number to be higher. Because, like I said before, you could get to Yang and kill him just by being old enough. You could just tank all of the hits and keep aging up as you beat him. But wow, only 19.9%. The funny thing is, Sifu is also a harder game than Hollow Knight. Is it that much harder? Actually, you know what? Oh, no. If you really think about it, Sifu, like, mechanically is harder because you have combos, you have harder parry timings, you have to, like, be able to dodge and parry everything, which requires stricter timing than Hollow Knight. But if you really think about it, Hollow Knight is actually almost comparable in difficulty to Sifu. At least if you're doing a normal playthrough with not like... You're not trying to beat the game at level 20 is what I'm saying. Or beat the game hitless, God forbid. Nah. I don't think that would happen. Also, is saying God forbid saying the Lord's name in vain? If so, I'm sorry. But anyway. No, this makes sense. Yeah. Because Hollow Knight, you need to pay attention to positioning of yourself and the boss, and you need to pay attention to what the boss can do. That's challenging gameplay. But is it more challenging to be able to do combo strings and do tight parry and dodge timings? Possibly. I think it'll depend on the player, depending on whether you're better at positioning or better at parrying. But, oh well. No, I think this makes sense. You see, it does make sense for Sifu, even though I think it's a bit harder of a game than Hollow Knight, or at the very least, it's a less forgiving experience. It's spicier food. Because Hollow Knight, you're not going to be getting your ass beat like every single time you just move through the arenas or move through the world. You're only getting your cheeks clapped when you fight a boss. But here, you're getting your cheeks clapped like throughout the entire frickin' game. Every single interaction you have with enemies is just them beating you up. What am I trying to say here exactly? I don't know. I lost my train of thought. But yeah. Anywho. Yapping aside. I guess I'm just going to leave that point right there. Yeah, Sifu is a shorter game, but it's a less pleasant experience than Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight, you get that serene, calm atmosphere. But then why is this, did more players do this? I guess literally just because the experience is shorter. The longer an experience is, the less likely someone is to complete the whole thing. Oh well. I think it's a lot to think about. The Escapists, I haven't played too much since I bought them. I mean, it's just such a tough puzzle game, man. Now, I was able to beat like the first prison just by leveling up enough to beat up all the guards, but whatever. I think I yapped way too freaking much about Sifu without really knowing what the heck I was talking about. Because there's just too many factors to consider. Sifu might have a better or a higher completion rate than Hollow Knight for one reason or another, and I can't exactly pinpoint what the reason is. All I can do is say everything I know. Now let's look at Bloodborne. Yharnam Sunrise. You lived through the hunt and saw another day. Wait. What? You became an infinite great one, lifting humanity into its next childhood. Captivated by the moon presence, you pledged to watch over the hunter's dream. Wait. What's the real... What the frick? What's the real ending here? When you beat the game... Oh, that's confusing. Like... What's the real ending here? Childhood's beginning. You become an infant great one. Isn't this the true ending that happens when you fight the moon presence? Yeah, look at this. I got the endings basically in what made most sense to me at the time I played Bloodborne. The first playthrough I did was where I fight Gehrman at the end, and then that's the beating the game, and then I become the next Gehrman. Oh, sorry, spoilers for the game. I guess spoilers for everything, huh, in this video. I should give a spoiler warning. But yeah, the main ending that I get, and I think most players would get, is that you fight Gehrman, you don't sacrifice your life in order to have one last duel with him, and then you become the next Gehrman. That's this. But childhood's beginning, you become an infant great one. That means you fight Gehrman and the moon presence afterward. But the thing is, in order to fight the moon presence, you need to get umbilical cord fragments throughout the world. And in order to get those umbilical cord fragments, you have to go way, way off into these secret areas that you can only find if you explore a lot, which most players aren't going to do. Or if you look up a guide, which players might not do on their first playthrough. If a player... why would they fight the moon presence on their first run? That's kind of weird. Maybe they're playing online and they saw messages leading them to the moon presence parts, and that's how they were able to do things. Okay, in that case, yeah, in that case it makes sense that the completion rate is actually kind of similar to Gehrman. Yeah, okay. And this here, of course, is the rarest one because this, if you just live through the hunt and see another day, that means you let Gehrman kill you at the end. I'm so sorry if Gehrman is not pronounced that way. Is it German? Chairman? Gehrman? Gehrman. That's what I called him at the first time I played the game. German? Yeah, if you let German kill you, that's Yharnam Sunrise. But like, who's gonna do that? That's so lame. You're not fighting another boss. You're not fighting the moon presence. You're not fighting one of the coolest characters in the game and in all of FromSoft, bruh. Come on. Now, what's funny here is that this is lower than I was expecting, actually. Bloodborne is an excellent game, an excellent experience. But the completion rate is really very much lower than both Sekiro and Dark Souls 3. Recall, Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro were around 28% completion, so that's almost double the people who beat Bloodborne, as you can see with the completion rate of these two endings. Why is that? Is Bloodborne a worse game than Sekiro and Dark Souls 3 because Bloodborne has a lower completion rate significantly? I don't think Bloodborne, the difference in quality between Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro, I don't think it's that big. I think in terms of gameplay, Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro are superior games. But in terms of the world, in terms of the environment, Bloodborne, I think, actually beats them both. It beats both Sekiro and Dark Souls 3. So objectively speaking, the experience isn't worse. Or at the very least, there's some subjectivity to say it's not really clear which one is objectively better or objectively worse. So the fact that this completion rate is actually like half is so strange. Anyway, let's look at the old Hunters DLC now. Orphan of Kos. Defeat Great One Orphan of Kos. The completion rate is very low, makes sense. This is like one of, if not the hardest boss I've ever fought in all of gaming. And yes, I'm including Malenia. Maybe the second hardest boss. I just remembered Promised Consort Radahn. Ludwig the Holy Blade, only 14.3% of people beat that guy. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, these are all sensible achievement rates. I'm surprised there's no like DLC specific items. Oh, never mind. There is. Acquire all old hunter weapons. So yeah, I think the achievement that stands out the most to me is the, wow. Wait, hold on. Yeah, the achievement that stands out the most to me is definitely the completion rate being so much lower than Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro, despite the fact that they're similar games. 66.8 thousand versus Dark Souls 3's 6.2 thousand. That's kind of funny as well. These are such interesting statistics to look at. Dark Souls 3 has like 1/10 of the likes, which would suggest that it's a worst game. But more people beat the game than people beat Bloodborne. So, oh my gosh, this is such weird information to take into. Now, Dark Souls Remastered, this I don't know what to make of the statistics here, but I don't know the statistics, mind you, but I don't know how to compare them because yes, it's a similar genre, but its age separates Bloodborne, Sekiro, Dark Souls 3 a lot. Dark Souls Remastered is a very different experience. It feels older, it feels clunkier, it feels goofier. Yeah, it's a silly old man compared to everything else. Modern and sleek. So let's see the completion rate here. 33.9% beat Dark Souls Remastered. I'm actually a little surprised by this because Dark Souls 3, like I said before, it's a clunkier experience, right? It's a clunkier experience, it's older. So the quality is definitely lower. And you hear people talk about in Dark Souls, the second half of the game is actually kind of booty cheeks because you have to go through the Tomb of the Giants, which people hate because it's super dark. Me personally, I kind of enjoyed it. But I'm not like most people. I totally get that it's super frustrating to move through the dark, and I had like the Skull Lantern item. If I didn't have the Skull Lantern, I probably wouldn't even like bother finishing this game because that Tomb of the Giants would have been so incredibly frustrating. Yeah, now that I think about it, I remember a review somebody did of Dark Souls Remastered, or not Dark Souls Remastered, Dark Souls Original. And they said they didn't get the Skull Lantern, so like the whole area sucked. I wonder if they made the drop rate for the Skull Lantern much higher in the remastered version to make that experience better. And I sure hope they did that. Wow, I beat this game at 4/20/2024. That's pretty sick. With 2 2s in the time. And 6 is 4 plus 2. Oh, what's the significance of that? I don't know. But anyway, I actually got hard stuck in Dark Souls Remastered as well. That's another thing. Not only is the gameplay experience bad in the second half, because you have the Bed of Chaos. You have... Wow, wait, yeah, let's... Controller down. Let's think about this for a second, okay? Dark Souls Remastered has the mother-trucking Bed of Chaos as one of the bosses that is required to win. That is one of the most absolute horrendous gaming experiences probably ever. And if you die to the Bed of Chaos, which you will multiple times because the floor is just going to fall under you and you're going to die without even knowing what the heck you were supposed to do before you died. You also have to make this long-ass run back past freaking mutated Chernobyl SpongeBobs and like hot naked ladies who shoot fireballs at you. Okay, you know what? Maybe not. Bed of Chaos is one of the worst bosses in all of gaming. The Tomb of the Giants is one of the most hated areas in all of gaming. Lost Izalith with all the flames is ugly AF. Now, it doesn't look so bad in the remastered version, but in the original, ugh. And I'd get it if you didn't like it in the remastered version as well. The brightness is turned down from the original, but it's still bright and ugly. And also, all the enemies in Lost Izalith are also heckin' ugly. And also, in the Duke's Archives, which is also in the second half of the game, I got hard stuck. Remember that? When I said that, and then I just went on a trail tangent off of that? Yeah, let's go back to that. I got stuck in the game. I couldn't beat the game because I had no idea which door to go through in the entirety of the freaking Hogwarts University that I got trapped in and held hostage in. I didn't know where the heck to go. And so I had to look up a guide in order to know how to beat it. So not only is there a complete roadblock to me, not only are there 2 terrible areas in this game that would make any reasonable person quit. What was the 4th Lord Soul to get? That was probably also not very good. Duke's Archives, I think, was a fun experience, although the run back to Seath was absolute dookie. Bed of Chaos was terrible. The 4 Kings! Oh my gosh. 4 Kings, and I've heard some complaints about it, but I don't think it's so bad. I think the actual, like, the water ruins was pretty cool. That was one of the fun parts of Dark Souls. So that was nice. But anyway, I talked about how terrible the second half of Dark Souls is. And I talked about how it's slower and clunkier even in the first half. But to have the completion rate actually higher than Bloodborne, a better game. Dark Souls 3, a much better game. And I was going to say Elden Ring, but we didn't look at the stats for Elden Ring. I think Sifu's a better game. I think Dark Souls 3 is a better game. I think Sekiro's a better game. I think Bloodborne's a better game. And this Dark Souls Remastered has a higher completion rate than all of them. This absolutely freaking baffles me. And keep in mind, Hollow Knight has like half of the completion rate of 13. Okay. 13. Bruh. Okay, this is almost triple Hollow Knight's. This is only 5% away from triple Hollow Knight's completion rate. So that, you could almost say Dark Souls Remastered is 3 times as good as Hollow Knight. What? What? No, bro. I mean, Dark Souls Remastered, it's a good game in the first half. It's a good game, even though it plays clunky, even though it's not as good as the modern games we have now. It's still an excellent game. Excellent. It's still a good game, a very good game. I had a great time with it. But to say it's better than Hollow Knight, bro, I just disagree. No, The environments of Hollow Knight, listen, Dark Souls Remastered was nice. Hollow Knight was freaking magical. It makes no sense, all right? Now I'm probably going to look at Spider-Man and be even more floored. Please make sense. Please, achievements, give me some sort of sense in the world. Give me some sort of logic. When did I meet Black Cat? I don't... Oh, 0%. Yeah. I don't think I got the Spider-Man DLC, so let's just look at the main game. Superior Spider-Man. Unlock all skills. Wow. Unlocking every single skill in the entire Marvel Spider-Man game has almost as high of a rate of completion as Dark Souls 1. Wow. Let's look at beating the game. Shocker, Electro Vulture, Fisk, complete Act 3 end game. That means ending the game, right? Why am I looking at an anti-serum? Shouldn't this just be, I don't know, a credits rolling? Or like a black screen? I don't know. Which one of these achievements is actually beating the game? Avengers Tower? Wow. That's kind of funny. A higher percentage of people perched on top of Avengers Tower than the entirety of people who beat Dark Souls 1. That is actually kind of funny. The amount of people, or the percentage of people who did a complete for fun thing in a game that's not exactly super accessible. Like, you have to go out of your way to perch on top of the Avengers Tower. Yeah, that's something that's not part of the main game at all, I think. Okay, actually, you know what? I think it's actually part of some side quests, so I take that back. But which one of these? Bruh. 100% all districts? Oh, that's funny. More? Bro. Now this gets me riled up. More people 100%ed all the districts, which means clearing out all of the criminal bases, getting all of the little backpacks, getting all of the pigeons, doing all of the research stations, doing all... And mind you, there are 4 different types of enemy hideouts. There's demons, there's Sable, there's Fisk, and there's the prisoners. Is there Fisk? Oh well, but even if it was just 3 enemy factions, my point still stands. There's a lot of stuff to do in order to 100% all the districts. And of course you have to beat the dang game. And I only did this May of this year. Oh my gosh. And still, a higher percentage of people did this than the percentage of people who completed Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is actually, statistically speaking, by these achievements, the shittiest PS4 game of all time. Yep, the data, yep, I guess the data confirms it. Yeah, Hollow Knight is cheeks. Now let's look at Overwatch 2. This will be my last one. My sanity will just be depleted. Oh wait, I didn't do anything because all of my Overwatch gameplay is on my brother's account. Win 100 games. Okay, you know what? It's like apples to oranges. It's not really possible to make a comparison. But anywho, that was that. Now, 2 biggest standouts of this video. Let's summarize. All right, Dark Souls Remastered is a better game than Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, and Sekiro. All 4 of these games, mind you, actually have similar play times. It takes around the same amount of time to complete all of them. So it's not a length thing like it is with Sifu, where you could argue, oh, it's a shorter game, so more people beat it. No. Dark Souls 1 and 3, Bloodborne, and Sekiro all have similar playtimes. I'd say around, 40 hours? So the fact that Dark Souls 1 actually has a higher completion rate than all of these games, and mind you, Bloodborne is a PS4 exclusive. All the PS4 players are on Bloodborne, and they still won't beat it. Versus other people who might play it on other platforms. Yeah. That's just crazy work. I was gonna say, people... I guess you could technically start a playthrough. All right, memory wipe. In Bloodborne, it's a PS4 exclusive, so you have to beat it on the PS4, which means the completion rate should be higher for PS4 achievements, right? Because you're only staying on the PS4. Whereas with Hollow Knight, with Dark Souls 1, with Elden Ring, you could play that on your PC instead. So you could play a little bit on the PS4 and you'll be like, maybe I could switch to maybe I could switch to PC, maybe I could switch to Xbox. Maybe I think it runs better on those consoles instead. So then that would lower the completion rate, right? Not necessarily, because Dark Souls Remastered still has a higher completion rate than Bloodborne, and Sekiro has a higher completion rate than Bloodborne, and Elden Ring has a higher completion rate than Bloodborne. What the fart? All right. Anyway, let's get back on topic. Dark Souls Remastered has an unusually high completion rate. Hollow Knight has an extremely unusually low completion rate. And Bloodborne has an unusually low completion rate. So that just goes to show Dark Souls Remastered is actually a better game than Hollow Knight and Bloodborne. And I'm gonna take a rest because goodness gracious.